Aye. Perfect timing. So,
Grab a seat right there. And the microphone there will be live for you.
so at this time, we'll might as well, it's about 7:30. We'll call the Thursday, October 6, 2022, City of Huntington Woods Historic District Commission to order. We have actually two things for the meeting minutes we have to talk about today. So I know that we talked about the August 24th meeting minutes before, and there's some content missing, unfortunately, due to some challenges with the notes takers and some turnover. We still have not been able to recapture what we think is missing. So we have a couple options here. We can table these meeting, or table the approval of these, and we have to either come up with the content that we think is missing as a group and send those to Hank so that they can be included, or we can accept the meeting minutes as they are, correct, Hank?
That is correct. My suggestion is that if you don't want to accept them as they are, and that's fine, that somebody would have to fill out content. I would add that, and then we would reapprove those at the next meeting, and everybody would have to agree to that. So that's how those would have to go. The minutes taker that we had is no longer doing our minutes.
Right.
And has moved on to other venues and challenges in life. And I think that until we get somebody else, that this is maybe a problem for us. I hope that it's not. I'm also going to need you to defer the September 7th minutes because the same reason. We're exploring sharing a minutes taker with Berkeley. And that's kind of where we're at with this right now. But as of this time, we do not have anybody or have anybody lined up. So whatever your pleasure is, that's what we'll try to accomplish.
So I know a lot of the content had to do with some of my conversations and some of your conversations, Jeffrey. So do you want to send Hank an email with some summary of that? That's the best we're going to get at this point in time.
It is.
We can push this and try to get them into the minutes and approve them next time.
Well,
I don't know how to
they're kind of
do this.
they're kind of moot though, because after that meeting, then the Schmears came back.
Correct.
And we had the special meeting. That was the one for which.
And they were ultimately approved.
And they were
Correct.
ultimately approved, and we
Right.
have those minutes here.
Yeah.
So, I'm inclined to let it go, because it wouldn't make any difference anyway. They, you know, with the contents of the meeting.
That's up to you. Then you would have to move to adopt the
August
the
meetings.
the historic. You would move to adopt the August Historic District Commission meeting minutes, and then you would have to make a separate motion to defer the September 7th meeting.
Yeah, we have a complete record videotape.
We do have the videotape, so it's not like we don't have
Right.
of what it is. We just don't have anybody to transpose that, which is what we're looking for.
So the information is intact.
The information is intact. It's just a matter of transposing it onto
Right.
a written document.
Hank, do all the other city commissions have the same issue with the minute takers, or are they?
The minute takers are done a little bit differently, and the city commission minutes are taken by the city clerk. And she does them the same way. The issue is that we have 3 boards and commissions that meet because we all do the same with the historic, planning, and zoning, which is 3 separate minutes issues. So we need somebody to do that because at like some of the other boards, they'll have somebody else or a member take at, and we can't do that with ours.
So we're kind of unique to just three different commissions.
Actually 4, but the 4th one never meets, rarely. I wish I had something better to offer you, but I don't, unfortunately. Until they get somebody,
Yeah, that's fine. So we've got the, I guess I'm going to look for that approval on the August 24th meeting minutes based on the discussion that we've had.
I move that they be approved.
Can I
As
say
a-
something? Because my name is still.
that was off the last one. I can fix that, honestly, I can.
So
Okay.
we'll amend that.
Yep.
We can amend that one.
To spell your name
Thank-
correctly,
yeah.
yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
And then can we get a second to, for that motion to approve the minutes with the clarification? Does anybody want to second that?
I can second that.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We also need a motion to table the approval. Is that what, the right words, Hank?
We're going to postpone the approval of the
Postpone the
minutes
approval
till the
of-
September 7th meeting until our November regular scheduled meeting.
Would anybody care to make that motion?
Motion to table the minutes from September the 7th till a future time.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could, please, it should be to a date certain. So it would be to the regularly scheduled October, or November meeting.
So what we'll do is we'll have it'll be on the agenda. We may end up tabling them again
It's possible, but unlikely. I
to
really
the
believe.
November 7th meeting.
Yes.
I'll change my motion.
Would you care to second?
I will be happy to second it again.
Thank you so much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries as well. Thank you.
Now-
Okay.
Now I have a question. Do we, Hank, did I misunderstand you, but do we have the meetings from the beginning of August? Those are the ones that we don't have minutes for?
That was the one that we have August 24th. We approved August 6th at the last, no, we approved August 24th at the last one, and we needed the corrections for the 6th. So we need, actually, thank you, Jeffrey, we need one more motion to accept the 6th.
So,
That's-
the
thank you.
August, okay,
We just approved the 24th minutes.
which is the approval.
Yeah, why don't we treat it this way? Since you have a record of it, why don't we approve the retention of the videotape records for August 6th and the decision on the 24th culminating the question that was presented on the 6th?
Because I'm still going to need to provide a written set of minutes for the 6th.
Oh, I
So-
see.
So I can use the minutes from the 6th that we had, but I need you to approve me to do that.
Okay.
So that would just be one more motion, vote for the August 6th minutes.
So we'll need a motion to approve the August 6th meeting minutes as well.
Yeah, but as supplemented by the
You can do that.
video record. Why don't we do that?
You can do that.
So okay, I'll move that we approve the August 6th minutes as supplemented by the video recording of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Perfect, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to now our applications. So we have a matter review for an addition to the Burns Zacharias residence at 26405 Hendry. And
So Hank, I just sent you, I don't know if are you driving the screen? I sent you this, instead of being in a Word document, I sent it to you in a PowerPoint, so you could make it bigger if you want. I just sent it,
You just sent it?
yeah, because when I was like reviewing it earlier today, I was like, okay, I don't know how we're gonna present this, but I know obviously this could be a little small.
All right,
So-
let me see if I can get to it,
Yeah.
because,
I figure you could pull it up in PowerPoint and put full screen.
right, but I gotta be able to drag it out of an email. Let me see if I can get to it.
let's just take a second and let Hank see if he can pull that up. That'd be great.
Okay, this will work.
Okay, then I'm going to move over because I get blinded. And that's good, we'll be able to get it on the screen so we can all see it.
Yeah. Would you all prefer if I took this bank of lights down?
Yeah.
One closest to you. Thank you. You can sit here. Oh, you got it.
The floor is yours.
All right, so this picture is, as it says, an artist rendering of what we're what
For
we're
the record,
proposing.
could you give a name and address?
Sorry, I forgot to mention, just state your name.
Oh, Marty Zacharias, 26405 Hendry Boulevard.
Awesome, thank you.
So, again, just a rendering, we'll go over the details later, but, currently there's a addition that was there, when we first bought the house, it was about 13 feet long. We were proposing to move it out 5 feet, add more windows and, a larger door wall in the back. I was here about a year ago proposing a similar, but we weren't gonna extend it. As you'll see with the next few pictures, the way it looks now, it looks weird because the current building's so small and the overhang is so large, so proportionally it didn't look right. So, my wife and I kind of went, since we weren't moving forward fast on it, we were like, okay, well, let's just do it right, if you want to say. So that's, the big change from the last time we were here was the 5 feet, adding more windows and before we were proposing just a vinyl siding, because that's what was there before. This goes a lot nicer with the house. I think we could agree with the brick and the trim. It follows a lot of the characteristics of other houses in the neighborhood that have sunrooms or,
Marty, if you want me to switch slides, just tell me.
oh yeah, well, you could go, yeah, if you want to switch, because I'm basically talking about what I wrote here. I'm just talking through. So like I said, we're adding 5 feet. We're going to paint all the trim. The other thing that we're changing, before I said we were going to use AZEK trim, but we currently have AZEK trim on some parts of the house. We're actually going to take it down. It just, to us, it doesn't look, it looks kind of cheesy. It doesn't, I mean, it does a job. I'm sure it'll last forever, but it just doesn't have the look of real painted wood. So we're going to make everything match the rest of the house, painted wood. The brick, again, we've done work on the back of the house already with the same type of bricks. We'll match the brick, match the siding. Columns will be wrapped in wood as well and painted. So everything's going to be cedar with painted Benjamin Moore white, which again matches the current house when we were doing renovations years ago. So again, that's what it looked like before. What kind of started all of this, that flat roof was leaking a couple years ago. So we came in and, it was, again, I don't know when that was done, but the roof had like a couple layers on it and it was just a mess. So we, and it was leaking, so we pulled it off and then replaced it. So you could go to the next slide. And this was, after we moved in, the middle part, we bumped out 3 feet. But we never really touched that room to the left. So like I said, once it started leaking, that's, where we started looking at, okay, how do we make it better? Because we didn't want to replicate the flat roof, because I'm sure we get the same problems that were there now.
Can I interrupt?
Sure, go ahead.
Just a second. Do you have a photograph of the back of the house before you did that?
Yeah, there was a previous
Look
one.
at- Can we look at
Yeah,
that one?
yeah, so
perfect.
that was when we first bought the house.
Okay.
So we took ownership in 2016, and yeah, that was it.
Okay.
So, and that's a current situation right now. So like I said, our proposal is take that structure, bump it out 5 more feet. And, and then here's the drawings, back of the house. Other proposal, the sides. So the windows are the same windows that are in there now. We replaced them with Marvin windows back in, 2019. So same window style, same grill pattern, same, same everything. So just going to be consistent with the rest of the house. And then just the roof lines. And then this is more of on the construction drawing side of things, so not necessarily cosmetics, but it just kind of gives you an idea of the construction aspect of it. And then there's windows and doors and the trim, and it's just, I just did that just in case you wanted to know what the detail was on the back of the trim. And that's a same profile. It's going to follow all the way around from the current back. That's the current back of the house, and is going to follow all the way around the new part. So it'll be a, as seamless as possible. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave it up in case somebody wants to refer back to one of these pages. Chris, is that going to be too bright for you?
Nope.
Okay.
I gotta get back to my microphone. I'm loud, but not that loud.
Okay.
Hank, let's see here. Do you have anything to add,
I
Hank?
think basically, what we're looking at is we're looking at the culmination of several requests for different drawings. I'm particularly appreciative of the last drawing, which is up there now, which actually shows how they're making it, at least the trim aspects of it. So I think basically, well, the format submitted, I mean, we didn't get scale drawings. So that's what we have.
I did
But-
drop off one drawing for you.
We,
So you're the, I mean.
we require
I-
more
For,
without.
oh,
But
okay.
having said that, if you folks are okay with this, that would be okay, but, that's up to you, but I think that realistically, anything, he's gonna have to come in for permit. So anything that's missing construction detail wise would be picked up by the building department when he comes in to do that. So if you're approving the form of the project and the materials used on the project and the dimensions used on the project, then any code issues would be picked up through our building official on that, and then I'll let him know, because nothing goes forward from historic until I sign
Yep.
off on it, so.
Yep. Understood.
Can we see the 2016 and 2019 images, please?
Yes, then you're gonna wanna see the proposed elevations on those as well, Robert?
No, I'm just looking at detail.
Here's
Yes.
2016.
Yes.
Can I, may I ask a question regarding this?
Sure.
Maybe out of order. Was that addition, original to the house?
It doesn't look like it.
Well,
It-
what do the blueprints tell you?
There were no available blueprints. When we bought the house, we had to get an architect to give us as-is drawings, or they came in and plotted all, you know, they did yeah, so when we bought the house, there were no blueprints or anything. But and the reason I say that because there's brick, you know, there's a brick facing, and then there used to be windows there, and then they kind of made shells where the windows were inside. So that leads me to believe that, you know, there were windows there, then over time, you know, they put this addition on at some point in time.
The reason I ask is because of the columns. It looks like there was a deliberate attempt at the
Yeah,
columns.
yeah, the front of the house has like a round
Yeah.
shape, and we were going back and forth about the columns, but my wife would really not like to have columns in the backyard. She didn't want to carry that look across into the backyard.
Yeah, 19, please, Hank. So I'm going exactly where Jeff was going. My vision tells me that space on the left was most likely originally an open-air porch. And those certainly appear to be original Doric columns that we would have seen in the front of the house, which matched the original Palladian window that was on the second floor. Architecturally, that goes hand in hand.
I'm sorry, with what?
Can we go back one slide? The window at the top that you removed
Yeah,
architecturally matches the column. You expect to see those things together.
oh, I see.
So I would say most likely that was an open-air porch originally and part of the original structure. Did this project come before the HDC? Well, for the renovation of the back of the house?
Yes. Yeah, and actually, I could show you well, I don't have it on me, but yes, and the proposal was on the right-hand side to have a large extension.
This was supposed to be
with-
different as well. And this is what he was talking about.
Yeah.
There was a bump out back here that went across right here.
Yeah, all the
And
way to the garage, actually.
when this came here, this came out, and then that facilitated the, I believe it was a kitchen renovation
Right.
on the inside of
Right.
it. So that became the brick that you see in the 2019 photo there. So he didn't touch any of that. So as far as the columns going, historically, I mean, I would tend to agree with Robert that that probably was an open air, or what we might term today as a lanai, and the spaces were filled in, is kind of how I'm looking at that.
That's just what happened.
Yeah, which I also believe is what happened. Having said that, was the project over 50 years old? I don't know that they did that over 50 years ago, but then again, this is 2022, so 50 years ago just puts us at like 1970. So it's not, and I don't know what point in time this would do this. And I would say they got this house, you got this through the Andres, correct?
Yes.
You're the original purchaser from the Andres. So other than Gene Andre, he's the only other person that's lived there. So it's, I mean, I don't know, he didn't do this, so the Andres did it. When exactly they did it, I couldn't necessarily tell you.
So, but the columns are gone.
Correct.
The columns are gone,
Yes,
Yeah.
because this is where you're at right now.
right. Now, if we had to, I'm not opposed to it, we could always wrap those poles in a column instead of wrapping them in, you know what I mean? Because they have the columns, you could either, come in halves or what have you, so. For just a aesthetics appearance.
Just real quick, Hank, did you have anything else you want to talk about before we start peppering you with?
No, I mean, I think that there's a lot
I
of,
never
there's
let you
a lot of history over the years with this project that I don't know that it benefits to get
But
into,
anything else
so.
in particular, you always are very thorough with your report, and
My
anything
thought,
else you need to flip through?
my
or
thought
we're good?
is that, not really, the only thing that I really do want to mention is that if there is an alteration that would happen to this, like into the plan, whereas if you wanted to put some replication of the columns that used to be there to continue on somewhat with the house, that anything that you change should be incorporated into the motion.
Correct.
So that we have an accurate record of what exactly it is that we're expected. Then, when we get construction drawings, those changes from tonight's meeting should be on the construction drawings
Correct.
for us to approve.
Agreed. Okay, so, I can't remember where I started last time, so I'm gonna go with Mark this time. You want to do you have any questions or anything?
No, I don't.
Mikhail?
I don't.
Jeffrey?
With regard to the windows that you're specing for the, I guess it's the interior side, why don't we go maybe to the next slide?
The next slide is here. Do you
Yeah.
want one more?
One
or-
more.
Well, that one shows all the new windows.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
we can stick with that
Right.
right there.
Okay.
It looks to me like these windows up here are the original
Nope.
sash windows, correct?
Nope, they're all new.
They're all new.
Yep.
What represents, what's,
Top right would be the original.
Nope,
window.
that's new too.
That's new?
Yep, they're all new. Only one original was maybe on that garage to the far right.
yeah.
This
And,
one here.
So I thought Marvin did they had a pretty nice product that I took pictures of the old window versus the new, when we were putting them in. I was very surprised at how, on point they were to the original windows.
Well, the question I was going to ask is about the mullions, the
Right.
division of the windows. And what was the reference point? Although as I'm looking at the back of the house, they're all over the place, really, in terms of the division, there's no,
Well, the 2016 photo might have the original windows.
the
Let's-
two,
Yeah, go back to the first.
let's go back to
So there's
that, because that would
So those are all
reflect-
so that was all the original. And, like I said, the one in the middle doesn't match the ones to the side, it's just the proportions of the window.
I see. And so, which pattern were you following then when you spec the windows?
Right, exactly right there.
Those on top?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And then I was a little unclear when I was looking at the artist rendering. Is this going to be, is this open?
No, that won't be open. That'll be, as I said, that's just for just a rendering, see, in the plans, that calls to be, paneled. So it'll be paneled like the rest of the house.
So you're looking at a cedar insert for
Right.
that.
Yep.
That's it for me, in terms of questions.
Robert?
I just want to clarify a few things. In your proposal, you're introducing a new window style here.
No, it's the same style as the rest of the house.
Those are double hung windows, right?
Some are casements. Most of the windows in the house are, double hung. We do have some casements. The only, I guess, if you want to say new window we're proposing is an awning for the very side where it's on the side of the house where nobody really sees. But all the other windows match what's already in the house.
So
You know, like I
for
said,
clarification, from the artist rendering view that we're looking at, these windows on the side here are casements?
Yes,
And if you go to the back picture,
yeah, yep,
you can see that
The
there are
next one.
casements right
yep, right there. Yeah, so there's
Those are
casements up top,
casements.
casements there.
And those are casements up there.
Right.
Because you can
There's
tell
a
there's
casement on the side, casements up
That's why
front.
the sight lines are slightly different.
Can we go back to the rendering, please, Hank?
Sure.
And this door is going to be what?
It will be a door wall, but it'll have the grills to match the other, doors. So if you go to the actual drawing, it'll show the,
A04,
right,
that shows that it's got mutton bars in it.
yep.
And the new roof line, you wrote, the new roof line is more consistent with the design of the house than the
Right.
previous.
Well,
but
the
it doesn't-
previous was flat.
But it doesn't,
The previous roof was flat.
but it doesn't match the roof line of the house.
In what regards?
Slope,
Oh, the
Well, the pitch,
yes?
well, the back of the house doesn't share the same pitch either. It matches the pitch of the back of the house on the, first floor. So if you go to the second, the 2000.
matches the pitch on the 2016 edition.
Yeah, so right there.
So
Oh, got it.
if you go back,
Yeah,
that
right there.
pitch.
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's it.
Steve?
Some of this has to do with the construction, but it might affect the design. What is there now, you're gonna extend out further,
Right,
and you're gonna be putting brick, like a brick skirting on it.
correct. Like a brick ledge.
Does that require reconstruction of what's there now for proper bricklaying and so on?
Yeah, so what's there now, we're gonna have to pour a new slab, and that's why the builder's gonna have to come out, because it was weird, when they had that, they had a patio behind there, and that patio had a footing. So I can't tell in this picture, but I prepped it so that when the inspector comes and looks at it, when we pour slab, you know, we're gonna have to dig a trench for the footing along the back, but there's an existing footing on the side, so we gotta figure out how we can or should attach to the footing that's already there.
They're also, that's gonna be more towards the construction side
Right.
of things, Steve.
I just
but
wonder if something's gonna change visually than what we see right now from where that's
No,
located.
because he's still gonna have to have a brick ledge, so what he's gonna have to do is he's gonna have to trench and/or pour and/or substantiate that an existing brick ledge, supportive footing exists. That's gonna have to be documented, but he'll do that to the building department.
So will this be removed, what's there right now?
No,
before?
there's a brick ledge on that section right there. Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, what they'll do with that type of thing, Steve, is they'll dig a trench, they'll dowel and fill, and then they'll pour the concrete, and that'll help, that'll stabilize the new part of the footing. But he may have to go, it depends on what the building official wants, he may have to go across. There may be a few things that he has to do, but that wouldn't be anything that we would approve or disapprove. It's a good question, though, because the outside could be different, but it doesn't appear that it's going to be.
Okay, what is on the other side that we can't really see right now? What is this, and it's been so long since we've had this in front of us.
You're looking at this elevation?
No, the one that would be like a
Yeah, so
east
not
elevation.
looking, at- yeah, that's,
That's the house.
Oh.
The existing
So,
house.
how much of a step in is there from that plane?
This plane to the existing house. Is there a step in? Oh, let's look, is there a foot
it's
plane?
like a foot maybe, or 2 feet. I know it says you're on the 1.9 feet.
Okay. I do have to say that it is in the back of the house, and I do feel that it meets the guidelines for additions. And what we see now is far better than what we've seen in the past. I do have a question about, because it looks very unusual, and went back to the rendering, kind of showed like the floor of the porch having like a step down to it. Is there gonna be like, is that what you're gonna see when you look at it, like looks like an
No,
8 inch or
there's
10
gonna,
inch?
once that's all done, we're gonna put a patio in the back.
So that porch will be
Yeah,
flush with a,
with the rest of the patio.
and,
Other than the door wall track?
Right.
and what's the status of the tree that's in the yard right now? That's come up in the past and was gonna stay.
I wasn't planning on anything. Yeah, if we were gonna chop it down, we would have done it when we first bought the place, but we kinda like big trees. Unfortunately, since we've been there, we've had to lose a couple trees just from rot or
Yeah.
some other unfortunate things.
Well, I feel that, it's not visible from the front of the house, not visible from the street, and, I feel that it meets the guidelines. As I read that.
Awesome. I don't have anything to add to the conversation. I think everybody's covered my points. Hank, seeing that there is nobody here on the public side, I'm just going to check that one off and we'll close public participation. We're ready to entertain a motion and have some discussion about said motion, if somebody's willing to make one.
I got a comment. I do feel that what we're looking at is slightly less than what we would particularly like to see, in detail and number of drawings and so on. I think that if this were to be motioned in a affirmative fashion, there needs to be some layers of administrative approvals allowed that kind of fill in the gaps. I don't know exactly how to do that and how to allow that. Does anybody else have any feelings here about that?
I would reference just a couple things, and then I think this would empower Hank to do some of these things administratively. There was a list of details, it was a written list that, it's at the beginning of the packet, and the one that was projected on the screen, hopefully
Yeah.
those are consistent. I'd like to get that into the packet. And then there was a trim detail at the end of that presentation that I'd like to get into Hank's hands too, because if you go to the pictures real quick, Hank, I think I'm gonna interpret this trim detail. You can, go one more, just, there we go. So that was a profile for that, I do
Correct.
believe. And so the intent is that profile, which has got two stacked boards at the top, it's got the soffit and the.
Chris, could you speak up so they capture this in the microphone?
So the intent is, when you look at the existing addition that was put on in 2016, there's some trim that's stacked at the top of the brick, and then it creates the eaves, and then the fascia board up those eaves. That will continue around the addition. So having that included in Hank's packet, which I saw it on the screen, I just didn't see it in your packet, that would give me the comfort between the written descriptions and that detail that I think we're getting where we want to be. And then if there's any other clarifications we could add. Does that make sense, Hank, what I said?
Yeah, it's not gonna be difficult to replicate what you need, as long as we state that exactly as part of the motion. Then when Mr. Zacharias, submits his construction drawings.
Yep.
I'll expect those
Yep.
changes to be on those drawings.
Perfect.
One other comment I make, I'm fine with the square pillars, and I don't think that, trying to replicate something out of context, which was in the original, that it doesn't have the meaning, to me, that it has any priority. I don't believe so. I think they're fine like they are.
So,
I have a question, Chris.
sure.
On what's called the left side elevation, these panels, they're called wainscoting panels, 4-inch ply strips with frame panel mold, something painted white.
Right. And that panel molding is defined where the windows are defined. I put the panel mold part number from Bolliard's Lumber. That will be there, and it matches the base cap. That will be using across,
What is it?
It's a flat panel, I think. It's just a
yeah, it's a
flat,
flat panel molding.
flat panel with panel molding on top of it to give it depth. That's what I think it is.
It is, that's exactly it.
So you're taking a flat, panel and you're putting molding on it to give it some depth.
So instead of it just being like a shaker style, it has a little character to it.
A shaker style. On the Georgian house. And my next question is, this might be
No, I said it's
totally-
not, I said it's not a shaker style.
Oh, not a shaker style, great.
That's what the molding's for.
Just to make me happy, who are Mary and Aaron Burns, and why is this their proposal?
Well, Marty, it's probably misspelled because I'm Marty.
Marty and Aaron Burns.
So Erin Burns is my, fiancee wife, we both own the house together.
Oh, got it, so it's you and?
Yes.
Got it, okay. Burns through me.
Yeah, yeah, that's her last name.
Ilya T.
No, it's in there,
Okay.
That was my bad reading.
So I'm looking to see if we can entertain a motion on this proposal.
Well, let me, if I may, just before we get to that
Absolutely.
step, I think all things being equal, if you're agreeable to this, and I wouldn't make it a requirement of a motion, but, seeing that photo of that sweet little porch that was once there and then filled in with those Doric columns, and the idea of carrying what was on the front to the back, if you could find a way to do it, I think it would add a lot to the look of that addition and sort of, I think, carry the feel of the front of the house to the back. I mean, a lot has
Are you
been
saying-
lost.
Are you saying try to put the columns like onto the corners of that?
Yeah, and although I don't think you need to wrap them. I think you could find structurally
Yeah.
sound, they're solid. I mean, they make them in a lot of different materials now, and I think that it might not be as hard to do.
I don't think with that design, I don't think I'd be willing to put them on the building itself like the current one had, just because that one was basically columns and siding, where this has more brick and
Well, no,
paneling.
originally that porch on the back didn't have that fill. They were just freestanding columns.
Oh, we don't know that. That's,
Oh, no, you could tell.
Yeah,
And in fact, I think that the discussion about the footing confirms it. That's would have been there, that was original, because that's the reason there would have been a footing. And you can tell, by the way, if you look at the photo of the brick that was running along here, that kind of suggested to me that was actually the original design. And so those columns were there, and they were supporting that roof, the 3 columns across the back. And,
There's probably a pilaster against the house
yeah,
to match the column.
yeah.
there
So-
was, but it was a cut one. It was like cut in half.
That's a pilaster.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's what would have been there, and the fact that it's a flat roof actually is is, I guess you, as a professor of mine once would have said, not inconsistent. So, and a lot of that has been lost. Like I say, I don't think I'd make it a requirement, but I think if you kind of cared about the idea of the historic nature of the house and the look of the house, it's something that you could do that would be a gesture in that direction, that would, I think, help consolidate the other aesthetic moves that you're making, in terms of the windows and the brick and so forth that you're carrying around. I mean, carrying through the back of the design. So I just wanted to get that in the record.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I have to disagree, sorry. Because I think if it's a new addition, it should look like something else, and you don't need to mimic what was there before.
Mhm.
It could maybe, like, talk to the old in a new way, but not do the same, because then it won't be the original. It just will be like an imitation. That's my thought about it.
Just for clarification, unless I'm incorrect, Jeffrey, you were not making that as a requirement of a motion,
No,
so. Whichever way, however the motion comes out is what we're gonna need to have clarification, so.
Any other discussion? Okay, I'm still, would love to see if we can put together a motion. Would anyone like to propose a motion on this application? I'm gonna pick on someone down on the end down there who pretty much had it all teed up. He's just gotta finish it.
I'll try.
Thank you, sir.
I would move for approval of the Zacharias application, 26405 Henry, that it meets standards 1, 2, 3, and 9, and that the fascia treatment to the eaves be consistent with the addition of 2019, and that thinking for a moment. Any changes to obtain building permits that vary from the plans as presented be administratively approved by the Historic District liaison, the zoning commissioner, because the zoning administrator.
Can we get a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
You have enough?
You have enough for an approval. We show Robert as a dissenting opinion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And
For the record, Mr. Zacharias, at this point in time, what you're going to need is you're going to need to revise your drawings to include what they were talking about with the pine lines and the fascia lines. And you're going to need to submit two drawings, two complete sets of drawings to the building department, at which point we'll be able to process that for you, along with the building permit application, the other information that they'll need. At that point in time, the only thing that we'll do is, or that I will do, is review it for zoning compliance, which it should, and then review it for historic district compliance and compatibility with the motion that was made and passed this evening.
thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
It's been a long road.
We're excited to see it.
Going through the changes too, I think we would have been happy with the original short-looking thing anyway, so.
We agree. Thank you. All right, so we'll just move on to other business. We were talking about this previously, so Hank has provided us with some proposed language for the administrative approval. So everybody should have at their place here the existing one dated 2/22/05 with the minor revision in 2017. And then on the memo is dated 10/5 is sort of the recommended changes. So we would like to see, well, I guess first thing I'd like to see if anybody has any comments about those changes or modifications to those changes. And if we're in some form of agreement, we might propose making a motion to approve those, or we might have to table it and talk about it some more next time.
Whatever you would like, Mr. Chair, if I might, I just want to point out that in the administrative approvals, in the proposed, which you have in front of you, item 14 is changed because it's actually removed because where we went through and it was, where did I put it? It was excavation for water or sewer line replacement and including any and all below grade approvals, which would include basement egress windows, which is why that was dropped out of that. So this is all stuff below grade that you wouldn't see.
So you said 14, but you're talking about 12.
Well, because 12 in the new encompasses 14 in the old as well
I'm
as
sorry.
that. So
A little slow. You were mapping. Got it. Thank you. So
I just want to make sure that
There's one less.
it didn't go away, it's
There's
just in a
one
different
less.
spot.
Yeah, you combined
Yes.
it. Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any comments to the proposed language that we would like to discuss.
I have comments.
Please share.
The word like, I think the word like either has to be excruciatingly painfully defined as what does like mean, or eliminated.
What number are you on, Robert?
Number
Number
4.
1,
number-
number 4,
Okay.
number 6, wherever the word like is used. Because we can say, we want to replace this 12-inch light fixture with a 13-inch light fixture, and it's just like the old one. And you go, yeah, it's just like the old one, but it's an inch larger. Well, at what point does like become unlike? Is it 14 inches, 15 inches?
Your concern
9
is
inches.
does like become subjective at one point?
Like is subjective.
So,
Like
okay,
is subjective. So like needs to either be eliminated or defined as identical.
I would disagree with that.
propose instead of either term, like or identical, to say substantially identical. Which still leaves possibly a little wiggle room, but it's more definite.
You know, going by conversations that we've had about window materials and other things in the past, I wonder, you know, when we've considered substitutions, it's been because the material is visually identical. In other words, you couldn't tell the difference if you're standing X number of feet away by looking at it. They would be visually identical. And I'm wondering if maybe we could use that word. Because it's the distinction then would be between the same, which means replacing a cedar plank with a cedar plank, to say something that, you know, is visually identical to a cedar plank, but is not cedar. And I'm wondering if that would satisfy it. Because we don't deal with structural issues. I mean, we deal with, you know, visual similarity. And I wonder if that would work for you, if that would be a way of getting around it. Because I understand what you're saying in terms of it's a loose, it may be a little bit too loose for the
These
purposes.
two phones are like each other, but they're not the same.
Right. Yeah, and you could say,
One doesn't replace the other.
well, you could also say that they're not visually identical.
Right.
You know, so it would allow us to make a distinction. I'm wondering if that, to say visually identical would work in practice for you.
here's the only issue that comes up with that, is you can say that you make a wood grain vinyl panel, and from the street, it may look the same as a hardy plank panel, which may look the same as or similar to a wood panel, but now I have three different materials, all radically different, that qualify as look the same. If it's your intent to allow those, then you should say that. If it's your intent to say, okay, well, you know, if it's wood or original materials, to the extent possible, it should be wood or the original materials. If it's not going to be, then the question becomes, does it matter really what it is? Because you're taking the wood out of the equation or the original out of the equation. It's like stucco half timber. You know, if you get a stucco that's like you know, that's those boards that used to fall apart all the time, and you have those, and then you have a timber that's like a plastic, you don't have anywhere near what the original quality and style and design really was with that. So if you want to determine, you may want to say in-kind replacement, like if it's wood for wood, that may be something different. But I mean, when you get to like in size, that's the same thing. Similar to me and like are the same word. You know, it's one of those things where if you say, it's like Robert was saying that, you know, 12 inches is 12 and a half inches really a problem? No, but where does it become a problem? So unless you have a quantifying standard for that, that would be it. If it's the same pattern, and I use the light fixtures as a prime example because we've had these two-story porches on colonial houses that have a very long chain with the wrought iron fixture, and then replacing that is somewhat of a nightmare because that's not what you get unless you have a fixture rebuilt from Diseños or one of these iron places that can make that kind of thing. So if you want to determine or come up with a definition for like, or if like is troublesome or we're getting too many different on that, my suggestion is let's write a definition for like. Let's get rid of the word. Let's write a definition that everybody's comfortable or can get behind, because I can promise you that what Robert's like is will be different than Chris's like, which will be different than, you know, Mark's like or my like, and then we have the inconsistency, which I believe Robert's trying to avoid.
So can I ask a couple questions?
Do whatever you want. You're the chairman.
The whole notion of administrative approvals is predicated on the belief that the person who's granting that administrative approval has some semblance of professionalism or understanding to be able to do these approvals. So that's about job qualifications. So if I'm a person who has no background in building or anything and this comes in, I mean, can I walk up to the counter without your input because of your title and your position, which there's qualifications for that? Can I get that administrative approval? I need to have somebody who's making the judgment on that.
In the city, when that comes in, the people that would be making the judgment would be myself, or possibly in my absence, Chris Wilson.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand, because there's going to be some subjectivity, I think, in any of these decisions, my opinion, but the idea, the notion about this is that there is a staff member in the city of Huntington Woods who has some qualifications to be able to apply those judgments.
There's always at least, you know, one, if not two, possibly even three around, because our building official has significant experience in many different communities. And if, for example, I was out for 2 months for some whatever reason, that I would be comfortable that he could fill in.
I know I'm digging into how the sausage is made in terms of the city.
Yeah, I would not be
This is only
worried
going to
about
be valid because somebody of some
knowledge.
is
Yeah,
going to be.
I would say that I would not be concerned that there would be adequate people here to take a look at that.
I would say that if there are, as you suggest, perhaps 3 people
Yeah.
who could be making this decision, that it's yet more important to strongly define these terms.
That's up to you.
Because each one could have their own vocabulary their own distinctions and how to interpret our language.
Dwayne and I will be pretty much on the same page.
Can I make a comment too? Kind of goes along with what Chris was saying, only goes a little bit further. I have a degree of trust in the discretion of our administration as I see it right now. And I think the purpose of this is to simplify things by not defining everything so rigorously, but allowing somebody that we trust to use their expertise and their discretion to have some framework and some latitude to be able to not feel that everything is so black and white and so highly defined. If that were the case, we wouldn't even be needed as a commission. We sit here and we make discretionary decisions because everything is not black and white. You have to put your trust in somebody. I think for what we're seeing laid out here, coupled with the fact that it specifically gives Hank or whoever the administrator is specific authority to bring it to the commission if they're at all uncomfortable with making a decision. I think that what Hank has demonstrated in the years and years that I've seen him occupy that chair is nothing but good judgment, good discretion, very knowledgeable, and somebody that I would trust. And if he says that somebody else is trustworthy, I would take his word for it. I cannot dictate and micromanage every aspect of his job, nor do I want to. That's my take on it.
I have to basically agree with what Steve's saying. You cannot completely eliminate all subjectivity here. There's always got to be room for discretion to a degree. And that's why I made the proposal that I did. And let me explain why I said substantially identical. It's a term that's well known in law. There's a seminal case that goes back to the 1920s, literally a textbook case where a person had a builder build a home for him, and the construction contract specified a particular brand of pipe to be used because it was a high-quality pipe. He didn't want cheap pipe used in his house, okay? Well, the builder used a different brand of equal quality, but the homeowner tried to get out of paying for it on the grounds that it didn't comply with the contract. It wasn't the brand he specified. And the court ruled that the builder substantially complied with the terms of the contract by using pipe of identical quality. Now, in another case that I myself was involved in, the owner of I think it was a shopping center, was having a addition put on. And in the course of construction, a backhoe operator severed the electrical feed line to a cell tower, which naturally did not make the cell carrier too happy. And they sued. And they said, the owner said, we complied with the law. We had Ms. Digg come out. They marked where the cable was according to the records that they had, and that's where our guy dug. Well, the cable wasn't where it was supposed to be. And the response to that was, yeah, but they didn't do it within the 10 days. The law says you have to have Ms. Digg come out within 10 days before you dig. It was like, I think, 14 days. So it doesn't count. And the court basically said, yeah, did the cable move in those 4 days? They had Ms. Dig come out. They substantially complied with the law. You lose. So, you know, substantial is an understood term. It allows for some subjectivity, some discretion, but it's well understood, you know, that there's limits to that discretion.
I think that's very good. I think it's far stronger than like, and it certainly puts forth the thought of the commission that you have to match closely. I think it sounds very good.
So do we want to change that to substantially like, or take light out and make it substantially?
I would say substantially the same or substantially identical.
It's
Okay.
substantially identical. It's quite strong.
So I appreciate that, just because it doesn't, you know, what I was worried about is that if we get so specific on the word, you basically don't have an administrative approval.
Right, at that point, just
So,
cross it off.
I like the clarity, because it's still, I go back to the point that, and to second what Steve and Mark had said, that I do trust that the city is going to put qualified people to make those decisions, and I want to make sure that the whole point of this is to, both for the citizens, we're doing right by them, but we're also doing right by, we're still upholding what we're trying to do in these historic districts. We're just doing it in a way, for a certain amount of things that's less expensive, less cumbersome, and again, the trust of the city to do the right choices, I think is great. So I think if we modified where we take like out and do a replace with substantially identical, seems to be the word, that still gives you the ability to apply some of your masterful judgment and allows us to have an administrative process.
If that's the pleasure of the commission, then the motion should reflect the change,
Mhm.
and it can be done, and I'll just incorporate it into that, and then it'll be done, but I'll give you all a completed copy so that you have the idea on that. And then, assuming that that's forthcoming, then I have another thing that I want to bring up for you.
Can I make one more comment? I don't want to belabor this. I feel that if there are items that Hank feels constrained on, because I think substantially identical, or whatever we're talking about, even strengthens, because identical is enough, now you're even adding more of a qualification to it. My concern is that there are projects that might otherwise come to us because Hank didn't feel comfortable making the approval, but the applicants or homeowners, property owners, are deterred from doing anything, which they might have otherwise gotten either way, administratively or through us, because of the bureaucratic and administrative nightmare of coming before this commission. So I feel that a little more discretion needs to be given and a little more trust be put in the administrator, because I think that things that maybe should happen will not happen, because after sitting on this commission and rendering our interaction with the applicants and our approvals, non-approvals, I wouldn't want to come before this commission. I think it adds a layer of difficulty to people's lives, expense to their lives, delay to their lives. And I think that by giving Hank a little bit more, having a little more faith in him and giving him a little bit more discretion will be a benefit to the property owners and the city. And if Hank's not comfortable, which I trust him, he would bring it here, and I think that we're still constraining him too much.
Are you
disagree with that.
suggesting that we're unreasonable?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. We're perfectly reasonable.
Well,
I think we do the right thing about
let's put the question to Hank.
95% of the time, but I do think that people will be deterred from coming to us to do especially small projects that they probably should be administratively approved.
I will tell you, if it helps on the clarification, I think I know where Jeff is going with this. To answer your questions, projects that I don't feel comfortable with, period, come here. problems that I feel that are comfortable, like if I'm getting a like-for-like shingle repair and it's because the guy's got a hole in his roof, he's getting a new roof. And that's administrative. Those are things where you have, where the guy is contemplating a new roof and there's not an imminent need for it, he wants to change from wood to asphalt, that'll come here. If he's got, if he's got something where he's taking the original, or he's taking asphalt off and putting it back to the original wood in the same pattern, shape, and style, that wouldn't come here. So those are the kind of things that we have, but I mean, there's a very fine line. It's like the Schmier windows. We didn't have enough information, and I didn't feel I had enough information to make that call, so the windows came here. When they got here, the commission didn't feel that there was enough information either, so they sent them back. They then got the information and came back, and they were ultimately approved. So that's kind of how this works. But the idea that there is where we can, and on things that are going to get approved or have to get approved anyway, or life safety or health or hazard or issues like that, those are all in here that can be administratively approved. So, I mean, that's very helpful. And the idea of Steve's concern that people shouldn't be held up unnecessarily, the intent of the administrative approvals is so that doesn't happen. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But I mean, there's been several occasions over the years where I wasn't comfortable with something, and I have no hesitation at all to refer to the HDC because that's where it should go.
Well, I'll tell you, the question, Hank, that I was going to ask is, if we recommended changing the word like to substantially identical, would that bother you? Would that make your life more difficult or
No.
not? Okay,
Because I still apply everything the same way,
right, okay.
so.
Well, I'm going to do this so we can get the ball rolling. I'm going to move that we approve the draft administrative approvals submitted on October 5th to the HDC, that we approve them with the amendment of changing the word like where it occurs to substantially identical.
Can I have a
Is-
second?
I second.
I have a question. Is that exclusively for that one word, and we would go on and address more within this body, or are you suggesting the entire thing be approved now?
Well, if you have other comments, then we should probably talk about those
Thank you.
before we make a motion.
Okay,
So I was not aware there was other
I have
comments, so
another
my
comment.
apologies. Keep the comments coming, so then we can.
There we
do the
go,
motion.
another comment. Comment number three, driveway and walkway replacement provided that routing and materials are not changing. That's great. What about size? Someone can say, my routing's identical, the materials are identical, I'm just gonna make it wider. Just
The
gonna make it different.
substantially identical. So substantially identical, where it says are same or like materials, it just be driveways or walkway replacement, provided that routing materials and size
There you go.
are substantially, you can do that, you can make that part of that. And I can incorporate substantially identical into that.
How would that,
The issue becomes, go ahead, Mark, and then I'll address.
how would that relate to the question, like, for instance, where you have a narrow walkway that does not meet
That's-
code from a safety
Right.
standpoint, and they want to widen it out to a 30-inch or 36-inch walkway?
Okay, so now here we go to the code where there's existing buildings, and the building official has the authority, not me, the building official has the authority to waive certain historic requirements. Like if you say it's got to be a 2-foot wide step, and that doesn't mean code, and that's clearly a safety issue, he's not going to approve that. He's going to allow it to be poured at whatever the legitimate width is for that, so there's no hazard for that. If you approve, if what you approve or what they bring in meets code and it meets what was there, but like with Robert saying substantially like, so once I'm done with this, once I'm done with all the historic stuff, it's still got to clear Dwayne. So the process here, so that everybody understands it, is it comes in, it goes to historic first. If it has to, it goes to the Historic District Commission. Then it goes to Dwayne before the building permit is issued. And for those that don't know, Dwayne Franks is our building official, and he's been around with 30, 40 years experience. I've known him for probably 30 years. Experience, and he's worked in many, many, many communities around. He is exceptionally knowledgeable, which is one of the reasons we were fortunate to get him. So that's kind of where my head is at with that. I believe that the only reason that Dwayne would alter what the HDC would have approved or what would be administratively approved would be for a safety issue. So if it's a thin walk and it's a narrow walk and it meets the code, he's going to approve it. If it doesn't meet the code, he's going to look at it and say, is it a safety issue? If it's not a safety issue, then he's going to, let it be. But if it's going to be a safety issue, he's going to require a change.
So are we saying then that if
Codes can be.
if something is out of code and they want to build it substantially like, but in code, then that could be an administratively approved change?
Yes.
Even if it's in the front of, let's say the height of a step to the tread of the step isn't the right proportion. Somebody says, I want to change the steps to my house, they're out of code.
That's going to have to go to code.
It's going to still be poured concrete that's there
Yes.
right now, and Hank's going to say, not a problem, I can administratively approve.
Risers are going to have to be equal risers. The whole thing with the code, like for that and steps, is probably one of the bigger issues, is it has to be equal risers. One can't be 6, one can't be 8, and have the next one go back to 6 again. That doesn't happen. The reason for that is somebody's going to, fall, and it's just, that's going to happen. And we see that. So the risers have to be equidistant. So if you have 3 risers and it's 18 inches, you're going to have 6-inch steps. That's how it's going to be. If
Let's
it's
say
20
that the porch isn't wide enough to stand on when you open up the door, which there's probably instances of that around. I could see that happening. Could you administratively approve a larger porch that would allow them to stand on the porch and open the door?
doors with that would be screen doors or storm doors, because those would be the ones that open out. The other doors would open into the house, so there wouldn't be a case where it would affect that. And storm and screen doors, and I'm going to use Chris's for an example. I could use Mark's too. Well, no, actually, because Mark has a small side porch, and that's a historic house, and it's a lovely house. It's got a great porch, and that side entrance is magnificent. And that's a small porch. But you reach for that, the building official at that point, because it's not just the steps, it's not just that, it's the entire porch. He would not make you take the entire porch off if it's existing for one component of the porch. That would be my understanding of how.
Not
we
make you,
would
but
act.
if Mark wanted to change that porch and make it larger and said it's out of code, it doesn't have the proper safety,
He would have to come before the Historic District Commission and get you folks to buy into that before it even hits that desk. So we would be 3 people away from that.
So we added size as a component to item number 3.
That is correct.
Any other new language updates that we can see? So would you be willing to amend your motion to add size on item 3?
Oh, me? Sure.
Your motion.
Do I do? Here come the judge.
So let's test your short-term memory and see what you said 5 minutes ago. I would fail.
Okay, this is take 2. I move that the draft memo on administrative approvals dated October 5th, 2022, be approved but amended as follows, that the 3 places where the word like appears is, where the word like is replaced with substantially identical. In item number 3, we add the word size, so that it reads routing, comma, materials, comma, and size are not changing.
Can I make are substantially identical
That's fine. So rather than.
instead of not changing?
Or substantially identical, sure.
Yeah.
Same consistent language. It's good. Is Does anybody want to second that, or otherwise they're going to have to make their own motions? Okay, we have a second. So all in favor, please say.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you for the input, and thanks for the work, Hank.
Thank you. Well, I'll let you go on with the agenda.
Well, as of right now, I see we have to open it up to public participation. Seeing as there is none, I'll close that one, and
I just have one more thing that I would like to
it
comment
doesn't say
on.
other business on mine.
Well, it did.
I'm just going to skip.
It was
by.
under administrative approvals.
Kidding. Okay. It is.
I just want to let you know that because we're catching up on all of these things, that the next thing that I would like to bring back before the Historic District Commission is the bylaws for review. Every once in a while, it's a great idea to do that, see what applies, see what's changed in the ordinance that may make us have to update our bylaws. So you can expect in your November packet the bylaws to come up. You'll be furnished with a copy of what is there now. You'll be furnished with a copy of suggested changes that staff recommends based on the fact that something has happened since 2004 when they were created. And then we'll go on to that. So basically what we're doing is we're in the process of kind of revamping how we operate, and that's just it. This will go to the city commission as an FYI.
Does any of this need city commission approval, or just, we have the ability to make changes?
The administrative approvals, because it's your board, you're doing it, and I'm already authorized by Public Act 169 and our city ordinance to make administrative changes. You are the body that decides what those changes are. So this is okay, but they will get it as an FYI. I copied the city commission on anything so that if they have a question or somebody has a question of them, they will have the right information.
The bylaws, do they approve the bylaws?
The bylaws, they'll take a look at and they'll approve the bylaws, because that's how the whole board operates, and that's a little bit different. They have to be consistent with the city ordinance.
I just wanted to mention FYI, before we talk about the bylaws next time, I went to this training session that you sent us the information for that was in Livonia, and the question of tabling submissions, your favorite topic, came up. And the person who was running the training session said that that was something that was allowable. She said it has to be according to your bylaws, but she said that was something that was allowable.
It has to be, and again, you have to act on an application within 60 days of the application, or they have to be agreeable to a table. We've taken that as a policy to mean they have to ask for the table and thereby state that they rescind any rights to the 60-day codicil in order for us not to have somebody that comes in and see it's not going their way, and then they say, well,
I automatically back in.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to throw it out there, and we can talk about it next time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to make a big deal about it now.
Yeah.
It just seems to me, and I really felt that with the Schmears, although it came up before, it is really from the standpoint of governance, you know, just self-governance, it felt to me really awkward, you know, and maybe there's a way, and I'm just going to throw this out, you know, for kind of our collective thinking about it, that we as a commission can table a submission. We can tell them what the implications are, but we can initiate the tabling. Because I think it's kind of a responsible way to handle it, you know, for them to understand that this is something that really has to be done, and instead of kind of throwing the ball in their court and then waiting for them to decide they want to do it or not. So I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I'm not trying to drive a decision one way or the other. I'm just sort of thinking about how could we make that kind of
I
instance that
appreciate
work.
it, but the way that we've looked at it and with discussions that I've had with our city attorney, if they ask for the table and they voluntarily, in order to get the table, you know, abdicate their 60-day right, which is guaranteed, and do that, and then when they do that, we have them sign a piece of paper saying that they're doing that, then it makes it awful hard for them to go to court and say, hey, look, you violated the 60 days. Well, you signed this document that says. So that was where that was coming from. Now, that doesn't preclude me from taking a different tact and asking the city attorney again with the understanding that I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'm always happy to ask the city attorney any questions that you might have, as long as it's anything that will keep the city substantially out of court.
And Hank, I think it's just because it's more of an education thing,
Yeah,
and I'm not sure if there's a way, when folks are here, that they understand that these could be the outcomes, and if you even provide them with some written information prior to them walking in here that says, hey, you do have an option to table and bring it up, and, you know, this would be the requirement for that you would waive this. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but I get, we do it as a benefit to the citizens,
absolutely.
and I think sometimes they feel like they're being bamboozled.
Well, there's a cost savings to them to do it, because
And
otherwise,
And that's the point, and I understand that they're being put on the spot and there's some fear and trepidation, but we are trying to do it in their best interest, so how do we get them to understand that we are
Well,
actually a friendly board and finding
once we're
ways?
done with the bylaws and we review the brochure that's handed out to the people before they come in here, which is also on the list of things to do, we can incorporate something like that
Okay.
into there. Because, you know, like we put all the ones like the meeting brochures and what this is, even if there's another line added, or if there is a slash or quote unquote Bill of Rights that's put in there, you have the right to do this. Now, it's on the application. So they, you know, when they sign it, they know it. But having said that, everybody signs applications all the time. Okay, what do I gotta do to get in here? I gotta sign this and give you $300? Okay, here you go.
Right.
So whether they read it and understand it, they don't, but it never hurts to put it in more than one place. And when we get to redoing that, and what I'm gonna ask you then is, what information do you want in here? Clearly, we need the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines. Those are things that we need to have. Is there a better way that we can get the approved guidelines from the city of Huntington Woods to these people? You know, the applications that we used to have were this thick, and they were this thick because I stapled every single one of them together that had that. Now we're with BSNA and our programs like that, so they can get permits and applications online, but I want to make sure that they get that information. So these are discussions that we're going to have as we progress through revamping the HGC policies and procedures.
Excellent, thank you.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned the Bill of Rights, yeah, because there's a good example in the actual Bill of Rights.
Mhm.
You know, everybody's familiar with the Miranda warnings from criminal cases.
Yep.
You can waive those rights. There are very few rights that cannot be waived. You know, it's just a question of making sure that
There's documentation.
informed consent.
Yeah.
Okay,
we
well,
could
then,
get to
now
that.
we're looking to, maybe not everyone's, but most people's favorite motion. Anybody have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, come on, don't let that
Second.
die.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
I'm not even gonna
Thank you all very
tally
much.
votes on that one.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very
There's one
much.
in here, that's not me.